Hey, there was no video last week. Did you miss me? Oh, okay. Hi everybody and welcome to another exciting edition of Boring JavaScript. I'm your host, the Virtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and today we will be talking about the setTimeout method in JavaScript. It's a lot like the setInterval method that I covered a couple of videos ago, except instead of just constantly executing a function over and over again after a certain amount of time, setTimeout will execute a function after a certain time has elapsed, and then that's it. You want to see how it works? Let's take a look. Now to show you the setTimeout method, I'm going to use a browser instance with a little local server running in the background. Now you can use browsers. This will work in browsers. This will also work in Node. I'm just going to use browsers because that's what I used two videos ago when I did the setInterval. So I just kind of stole the code and just went from there. So our HTML is going to be very, very simple. I've got a script tag here that will load in the script, and this is inside that script is where we're going to use the setTimeout. I will display all my results in this results div, and I've got a button here called cancel, and that will become very important in the second part of this video. Let's get to the JavaScript. Here's my JavaScript. Very simple, straightforward. There's nothing a whole lot to it. This is the setTimeout method. Now the setTimeout method takes two arguments. The first argument is a function that will get executed once the timeout has been satisfied. In this case, I will be executing this function down here. The second argument is the amount of time that will elapse, and this is expressed in milliseconds. There are 1,000 milliseconds per second, so in this case I have told it, hey, 3,000 milliseconds have passed, execute the function. So how long will it pass in our world? That will be 3 total seconds, because remember, 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. setTimeout will also return what's called a handle. And I've saved this handle and called my timeout. That's going to become very important here in the second part in just 1 second here. So what will happen once I execute the code here? First thing it's going to print out is a statement called before timeout. Then it's going to print out after timeout. And it's just to prove to you that it's not going to do before timeout, then execute this code and sit there and wait 3,000 milliseconds. This is not a wait function. This is just a function to say, okay, schedule this function to occur after a certain amount of time, but then continue on executing. So the second thing I should expect to see is the word after timeout. Then after 3 seconds has elapsed, I should see setTimeout has executed. You want to take a look at it? Let's see how that works. Let's go into our browser. This page has been left intentionally blank. And let's go to setTimeout. 1001, 1002, 1003, and there we go. setTimeout has now executed. And it happened exactly the way I thought it would happen. First of all, before timeout executed, it printed out, then after timeout printed out, and that basically means that JavaScript continued on executing even after it had scheduled that function to be executed after a certain amount of time. And after 3 seconds had elapsed, I got the setTimeout has executed. Now what about that cancel button that you saw at the very top here? What exactly does that do? Well, let's flip back over to our code. And let me show you exactly what that does. Now remember earlier I said that setTimeout will return what's called a handle. Now this handle you can pass to a method called clearTimeout. And the clearTimeout method will essentially say, okay, if I've got a timeout that is currently executing and I issue that clearTimeout, that timeout will cancel. And let me show you how that code looks. I've scrolled down here. This is all it really is to it. The idea of clearTimeout is you pass to it the handle that was saved in the setTimeout. So as you can tell back up here, I have saved as the return value from setTimeout into a variable called myTimeout. So myTimeout is my handle. And then I'm passing to clearTimeout the handle. Once that happens, if the timeout is still executing, it will just immediately stop it and you won't get a function. So if I click, let's go back to our HTML here. If I click on cancel after I refresh the page here and before 3 milliseconds is up, I should expect the message to come up saying, hey, it's been canceled, but then I should never see this occur. You see it work? Here we go. So remember, once I hit refresh here, I've got to hit cancel in 3 seconds. Here we go, and go. 1001, 1002. Whoa, yes, that's right. Look at that. So my timeout has now been canceled, but notice I never got that final message that's saying it has been executed. So that's why you want to save at times the handles, that if you know for a fact that you may need to clear out that timeout or stop that timeout from recurring, make sure you save that handle and pass it to clear timeout. So to recap, setTimeout will execute a function after a certain amount of time but never re-execute it again. Clear timeout will stop that execution if that timing is still going on. setTimeout sets it, clear timeout clears it. Now let's take a look at another way you can pass arguments to the setTimeout method. Now remember when I told you that setInterval took 2 arguments? Well, I lied to you. It takes more than that. You can actually pass variables to your particular setInterval function if you specify those variables after the timeout. So for example, let me show you what I mean. Here's what we originally had done here. I declared my function and I got the timeout. And as you can tell here, the number of arguments I expect is nothing. But let's go to some code that shows you how to pass arguments. I now have those 3 variables that have been declared. And now my setTimeout has those 3 variables appended after the timeout number itself. That will then allow me to declare those 3 variables as arguments within my function. So now incoming var1 will match my var1, my var2 will match incoming var2, and incoming var3 will match my var3. I've defined them as 1, 2, and 3, so I should expect my text here is print out variables passed 1, 2, and 3. You want to see how that works? Let's take a quick look. Let's go to setTimeout 2. 1001, 1002, 1003, and boom! Yep, there we go. Variables passed 1, 2, and 3. So that shows you that you can pass variables as from your particular timeout declaration to your function. Now, how are we certain that this actually did work and it just didn't read the variables from above? Well, just be on the safe side. Let's change my variable 3 to 500, and let's see what happens. Just being fun here. So let's do a control refresh. 1001, 1002, 1003. Yep, variables passed 1, 2, and 500. So as you can tell here, let's go back to the code. If you need to pass variables to your timeout function, it is extremely easy to do. Just simply specify them after the millisecond declaration when you do your setTimeout method, and then you can specify those as you see fit within the argument section of your function. So this shows you how you can pass variables from your setTimeout declaration into your timeout function. And that's all there is to using setTimeout. I hope you enjoyed our video. Hope it didn't bore you to death. Please visit us at www.boringjavascript.com for all of our videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or see everything we've got at blog.thevirtuoid.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.